Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. I am your host, Ted Glover, and with me, as always, my partner in crime on Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, Drew Bunning, and the founder, lead blogger, and numero uno honcho of the SB Nation Minnesota Vikings site, the Daily Norseman, Christopher Gates. Gentlemen, it was the best of halves. It was the worst of halves. It was the half of wisdom. It was the half of foolishness. It was the half of belief. It was the half of incredulity. It was the half of light. It was the half of darkness, to borrow the opening to A Tale of Two Cities from Charles Dickens. What did we just watch, Christopher?
Unmute.
Chris, you're on mute.
Derp. All right, I'm here.
Only mistake we had all day.
What we saw is what we in the business like to call your typical Minnesota Vikings football game, because this thing happens every damn week. They were up. It was 27-3, 5 minutes into the third quarter, and once again we got to hang on for dear life because I don't know why. To be honest, the offense just disappeared after the first drive of the quarter, and yeah, it was for as great as the first half was, it was kind of ugly there at the end. Now Ted's muted. Yeah, so once Ted unmutes himself here, I don't know why Ted's muted, but yeah.
Ted, you're muted.
So Drew, what were your impressions of what happened?
Pretty much what you said, man, but I'm going to take it. By the way, I'm Mick Druber today, Ted, or Chris.
Very nice.
Keeper of the win streak, which is now at 5. I don't give a rat's ball sack how we won the game, but we won the game. Point is, the end result is we have to win the game, but I agree with everything you said. Why can't we put a team away? Because Kevin O'Connell likes the one-score game. He likes to work harder at something. It makes him feel like he accomplishes more. If he wins 41-19, he doesn't feel good about it. You got a team has to be in the game. Because I don't know what went on in the second half, but you got to learn how to put teams away. But overall, that first half, you guys got to admit, that was a different Vikings team.
I mean, I damn sure feel good about it if they won 41-19. I mean, that'd be a nice change from what we usually get. But I don't understand it. I mean, the first half that T.J. Hawkinson played about as good a first half of football as I've ever seen a tight end play. I think the Vikings communication staff put out something that said he was the first tight end in NFL history to have 10 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown in one half, which is
wow,
which is pretty amazing. I mean, and that dude was playing through some significant pain today. I mean, that dude had bad ribs. He had everything was messed up with T.J. Hawkinson today, and he was out there just playing through it, man. He was great.
Second half didn't go like I wanted to at all, but like the great Mick Druber says, Chris, and by the way, shout out to the Dick Trickle sweatshirt, man. That is just
you're damn right.
That's awesome. But that first half had, the play calling was good. I don't know. The Vikings had like 5 opportunities to put that game away in the second half, and Dobbs wasn't throwing it very well. He threw the ball at Hawkinson's feet, but like you said, It's the Vikings. They're not going to just run away with it and make it easy for us.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Can see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. It's the shirt. It's the jersey, gentlemen. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it is an authentic Josh Dobbs shirt I got. Like it's game worn. It's game worn. I don't know if you can tell that or not.
And
money well spent, Ted.
And it in no way, shape, or form says Bridgewater on the back.
No, it says Dobbs as far as you know.
That is
as far as we know. Yeah.
All right, look, I was trying to change my speaker and my camera so my grandson Grayson could say hi. So what I'm going to do, he wants to come over and say hi and just say hello to you two. Grayson, come on over here, buddy. I'll put the microphone on him, and he could just say hi real quick.
Hi.
Howdy. Did you have fun today,
Grayson?
Grandpa, watching the game?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Don't just
That's
give us
the
a
most important
hi.
thing.
Give us a hey, what's up? Yeah. Go ahead, let it loose.
Don't listen to anything.
How about the Vikings, Grayson? Grayson, how about the Vikings? What do you think?
They're doing pretty well.
You like
Yeah.
Dobbs?
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. I guess.
Good. You like my hair? You like my hair?
Yeah.
Thanks, Grayson. All right, thanks, buddy.
See you, Grayson.
All right, he's got a
See you,
future in
Grayson.
broadcast. I don't care
Good.
what anybody says.
He does.
It's always
All
good
right.
to have Grayson on.
Yeah. All right.
Who's in the room? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much for joining us. We've got, let's see, we've got a amount of, closing in over 100 folks in the room right now. As always, what we are going to do is towards the end of the game or towards the end of the show, we are going to spin a wheel, the electronic Toons' Wheel of Destiny, to give away a prize. You can check out the prizes over on our website, VikingsReport.com. We're talking about the two halves. I thought Josh Dobbs played about as almost a perfect of a first half as you could. And Drew and I were texting, Chris, we don't include you because you're busy running the blog and the website and writing synopsis, chapter or quarter, end of quarter stories and all that stuff. So we don't want to bug you and distract you. It's not that we don't love you, because we do. But be that as it may.
No, I appreciate that. I understand.
It just seemed like this offense was the Kevin O'Connell offense realized with Josh Dobbs running this in the first half. Drew, do you agree or not?
It looked completely different, and I have a question for you guys that would have worked out better if the first half turned into the second half. But since the second half was typical Vikings, I'd still like to ask it and say that was Cousins putting KOC behind the 8 ball for play calling? Because that looked like his play calling looked completely different in the first half of this game than it's looked all season. I mean, it passing it on first down, play action pass on first down, bootleg, wide receiver screen, wide receiver slant. Did Dobbs give KOC the ability to make his play calling better? Because I've been ripping KOC all year about the play calling. Was it that? What was it?
Chris,
what the second half happened?
I mean, it might have something to do with it. I mean, obviously there are things you can do with Josh Dobbs that you can't do with Kirk Cousins because he doesn't have the same level of mobility that Dobbs has. But, I don't know if, before he got hurt, Cousins was playing his way into the MVP conversation around the league, I think. I mean, they could have won these last 2 games without Cousins, I think. And, with the numbers that Cousins probably would have put up, he probably would have gotten himself into the MVP conversation. So I don't know if it's necessarily Cousins that was holding Kevin O'Connell back as far as play calling. But, like I said, there's obviously things you can do with Josh Dobbs that you can't do with Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, it might have unlocked a few things here and there, but I don't know if it's the be-all, end-all answer at this point yet.
Drew, what do you think? I mean, you and I talked about this. Do you think it is that different or better, or what would you use to describe the offense under Josh Dobbs these last 2 games?
It just seems more fast-paced. It seems more exciting. It seems like you can expect the Vikings feel like they're a team not ready for a 3-and-out, but ready to drive it down the field. It just had a different total feel to it. And let me tell you this. That game is not 24-3 if Cousins is in there at the half. And I'm not ripping on Cousins. Chris is right. He's on his way to the MVP, whatever. But that game is 10-3 at the half, 13-3 at the best. Because a couple of those drives we scored on, Chris and Ted, the drives would have been ended if Cousins was in there without Dobbs moving his feet and running and making plays out of the pocket. 2 of those drives are dead. So his play in the first half allowed us to get up 24-3. It wouldn't have been 24-3, and that ended up being the difference. Even though he had a slow second half, Cousins isn't scoring on some of those plays. He's not even getting it down the field on a couple of those drives.
I would agree, and I would also agree that it might not have been 13-3. Like when the Vikings offense is not firing on all cylinders, and look, I hate to say this is a dig on Kirk because it's not all on Kirk, but what happens is the Vikings tend to go 3-and-out a little bit more. And I think what you saw in the first half was Josh Dobbs with his legs giving the Vikings at least a more favorable second and third down, converting a first down, making that ridiculous touchdown run,
right?
Whatever. Whereas the Vikings might go 3 and out a couple times in a row, and now you're putting the defense right back on the field, which could give the Saints momentum, and it could be like, a 3-point game or whatever. You're right. I don't think the Vikings score as many points they do in the first half if Kirk's in there, unless he would fire on all cylinders, especially with Justin Jefferson up, T.J. Hawkinson kind of nursing that oblique and whatever. So
that touchdown run Dobbs made. That's a field goal attempt with Cousins in there.
Yeah.
And I like Cousins.
Yeah.
I think Cousins is a great quarterback. I do, but Dobbs just gives you that playmaking ability. So, how do I say that without sounding like I'm bashing Kirk Cousins? It's just, I'm telling you, it's facts is facts. We're not up 24-3 at halftime. We are not with Kirk Cousins in there. And that ended up being the difference of the game, Chris.
Well, Stuart Anderson is going to disagree with you. He said, Drew, way to start the Cousins bashing when he isn't even playing.
No,
so,
I'm not bashing him. You guys,
let me finish the comment. So fair. You can't say he wouldn't have made those two plays. He would have had his own plays. It's just ridiculous. Maybe. I don't know. I'm
not trying to be ridiculous, but I have been known to be ridiculous. I mean, look at my hair.
Well, look at your hairpiece. As Jay Johnson asked, what's going on with your hair?
That's my McDruber. I am McDruber. I can make things happen with a stick of bubble gum.
It's when you got to do the podcast at 3, but you got to be to Flavortown by 4.
You look like Guy Fieri.
You guys explain. Maybe I didn't explain it well, Ted. Chris, explain what I'm talking about. Explain it, please.
I think I can understand what Stuart's saying here, because because of the limitations that Cousins would have had in those situations, there would have been different plays called. There wouldn't have been the same sort of plays that we saw for Dobbs. However, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, having Dobbs at quarterback has given Kevin O'Connell the ability to call the sorts of plays he was calling for Dobbs that allowed Dobbs to ultimately be successful in those situations. But I think both quarterbacks could have had success in those situations, but it's hard to say, one way or the other that they definitely wouldn't have converted there, or they definitely would have, or so what. I can understand what Drew's saying, but I can understand what Stuart's saying here too.
Let me rebuttal this, if that's the right word to use.
Sure.
First off, I love Stuart Anderson. I love the Black Angus restaurants he started. I eat there often. Excellent. Stuart, I love those restaurants. But like Chris just said, if Kirk's in there, you get a different play call, a limited play call. Well, if it's limited on Kirk's play calls when he's in there, doesn't that also mean there's a limited chance to score?
Yeah.
Okay.
No?
No, I'm not disagreeing.
No, I'm just saying Kirk could have scored, but Dobbs, with his maneuvering around, gave us more of a chance to score. That 2-minute drive, we're not getting a touchdown with Kirk Cousins. We're not.
That 2-minute drive, the 2-minute drive last week, and the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half that resulted in a touchdown, and last week to end the game to win it, were arguably the two most impressive 2-minute drives I've seen. Kirk's had some great 2-minute drives, and he's run the offense really well. But these were just really, I don't want to say out of nowhere, kind of out of left field, but I did not expect that type of efficiency from a guy that's been with the team that short a period of time, Chris.
It really has, and like some folks are saying in the comments, I mean, we're talking about how great Josh Dobbs has been and whatnot, but I mean, he's still only been on the team for like a week and a half. I mean, there's only so much of the offense that he knows at this point, so things are limited in that way as well. But the limitations are different because of the mobility element that Dobbs gives you, as opposed to maybe the superior passing ability that Cousins would obviously have. So I mean, there's limitations for there's limitations for both guys, but they're different limitations. And with so many of the NFL offenses kind of being centered around mobility at the quarterback position now, it's different with a Dobbs in there than it would be with a Cousins in there.
Dobbs definitely brings a different dynamic to this offense, and one of the things you mentioned, Chris, is the accuracy. Kirk, I don't think makes when he's on, his throws are dead on perfect. He does not miss. The one thing I've noticed about Josh Dobbs is that his throws are just a little bit off. I mean, a little bit behind, a little bit ahead. I think as he plays with this offense more and these receivers, that the receivers will kind of adjust to it, and he'll adjust to the speed of the receivers coming across the middle, running around, whatever. And that might improve somewhat, but it's something that is definitely a drawback. But what you lose in that accuracy, I would counter. You gain in a level of mobility and an ability to climb the pocket and evade the rush that we have not seen for quite a while in this offense, Drew.
Yeah, I'm not saying I hate Cousins, but you know that play where Dobbs escaped and then ran for the touchdown?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the difference in scoring a touchdown, Cousins can't do that.
I'd agree, Chris. Yeah.
If you put both guys up there and said, Drew, you got to draft one, I'm taking Cousins because he's more proven and he's good fundamentally. I mean, I know he's not mobile, but I don't want people to think I hate Cousins. I'd probably take him overall, but it's an exciting new opening door for me watching this team with a quarterback that be a playmaker. It is.
And you have to keep in mind that the limitations at this point are not just at the quarterback position, because the Vikings went out there today with no Justin Jefferson, no KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson. Dude went out there and got his ass kicked all day long. He was obviously playing in pain. Caught 11 passes. But for a while his skill position guys were Jordan Addison, Brandon Powell, Ty Chandler. I mean, that they don't have all of the stuff around him that he's eventually going to have. I mean, I don't know if Justin Jefferson's coming back next week, the week after that. They probably could have tried to take or put KJ Osborne out there today, but they decided to hold him back another week too. But, some of the limitations in the play calling might have to do not just with the quarterback, but with the personnel that's around the quarterback at this point as well.
That could be, yeah.
Can we talk about the running back spot for a second?
Here's a very far point, then we'll move on to the running backs, I promise. Templar Knight has a really fair comment. He says, to be fair, Cousins had to play against better teams the first half of the season, and that's true. He had to play Philadelphia, Kansas City. What are some of the other teams he had to play? Tampa Bay's not bad. The Chargers, San Francisco. And so he, the quality of opponent has been a little bit less since Josh Dobbs has been in, but to say Josh Dobbs doesn't bring anything to the table that's unique would be wrong as well. But speaking of the running game and Josh Dobbs' ability to run, Drew, what did you want to say about the running game? Because I got a lot I want to say about it too.
Why is Madison playing? Put Chandler in there. Just put him in there. Does Madison have naked pictures of KOC at the nightclub or something? I don't. It got to the point where I was talking to Dave Stefano, our friend from First and Skull. We were texting during the game, and I told David, I said, it seems like the only bad plays are Madison plays. Everything else seems to work, and it's like, here we go. For people writing in, Drew bashing Madison, you got to play who gives you the best chance to win, and you got to put Chandler in there. You got to.
So, Chris, I'm going to ask you for the running stats in a minute, but at some point in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, Madison got the ball. He ran for 2 yards on 1st and 10. I'm sorry, Ty Chandler ran the ball for 2 yards on 1st and 10. And my grandson Grayson looks at me and says, well, he got more yards than Madison would have gotten. He's learning.
Sure.
All right, what were the running stats for today, Chris?
Okay, so Chandler wound up with 15 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. He had I'm pretty sure he had at least 3 carries that went for double figure yardage, but I'd have to go back and find each of his carries. Dobbs 8 for 44, Madison 8 for 27, and Kene Nwangwu was still alive. He got 2 carries for 9 yards today. So of course 8 of those came on 1 carry, and the other one was only for a yard. So add that all up. I think
did we outrush them?
Rush yards, yes, we had 125. The Saints only ran for 65 yards.
Wow.
Kamara had 9 for 42, and they only ran for 65 yards.
And then Chandler also had that 29-yard touchdown called back by that holding penalty that would have pretty much put the game away.
or he's on fire today. That would have been 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Yeah. What about how did you guys feel about the that Wildcat touchdown that Chandler scored on in the first half?
I think Christian Darrisaw was getting ready to kill somebody on that block, and then they decided to make a business decision and just kind of go down there because he was coming across there. I think it was some defensive back because he was wearing like number 23 or something. He was just like, nah, and I'm just going to lay down and let Chandler walk into the end zone. But that was a hell of a play call because they started Dobbs out under center and then they motioned him out, and yeah, it was. We hadn't seen that, I don't think, and it was an impressive call. It
was that creative play calling that harkened back to last year inside the red zone. Drew, you and I talked about this a lot last year. Well, Chris, you as well on our post-game shows that the Vikings were very creative inside the red zone with their play calls to get in the end zone. And we really hadn't seen a whole lot of it this year, but I thought today that their red zone calls were phenomenal. That Wildcat touchdown by Chandler was just, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot, Drew.
Ted, the Wildcat touchdown by Chandler was KOC's best call of the season.
It's up there.
It's right there.
To me, it was the best call of the season. He disguised it perfectly. He blocked it perfectly. Great design. Great call right there. I've kind of been wondering where that design and creativity's been all season. But I think he feels more creative with Dobbs in there. I mean, you're splitting Dobbs out to the right. It's not like splitting Cousins out there. He's not going to gain any. Nobody really cares about that. But the whole design, the timing of the call was perfect. Best play call of the season.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. And one other thing I noticed the Vikings seemed to do a lot more of was this play action rollout. And I don't know if it was a run pass option for Dobbs, but in the first half they called that a fair amount, 3 or 4 times I think, and it always seemed to work. Where Dobbs would get the snap, roll out to his right, and had the option to either throw to Hockenson or Powell or somebody, or run with it. And he always seemed to make the right choice and get a lot of yards and get the first down. And I don't think the Vikings ran that play one time in the second half, if I remember correctly.
I don't think they did either. I don't remember seeing it if they did. But yeah, the Wildcat call, I think Drew's probably right. That probably was the best call that the O'Connells made this year. It was impressive. I mean, obviously the Saints didn't know it was coming, and it was successful.
Yeah, Drew. But then let's talk about the second half. I mean, as good as the Vikings were in the first half,
let's do that, Ted.
Their second half was just mystifying. Right? Our Emmer33 says fewer tight end screens this week. I don't think they ran a tight end. Did they call one tight end? Did they call a screen pass at all today? I think they had one to Johnny Mundt, and that actually got some yards.
No, they threw the one to Mundt, and he got tackled. There was no blocking in front of him, and he got tackled at the line of scrimmage. But maybe I'm thinking of a different play. Maybe there was a couple to Mundt. Maybe it was 2 to Mundt. I think there was 2 to Mundt.
But let's talk about the second half. I for as inspiring and creative as the first half play calling was, other than that Ty Chandler touchdown run that was called back, the Vikings ran, I don't know, it looked like preseason week 2 vanilla, just run between the tackles and get out of here, unless they actually had to make a play. Dobbs made that nice pass to Powell on 3rd and 10 for 14 yards to keep a drive alive. You know, Greg Joseph again missed a freaking field goal that essentially would have iced it. I don't know, man.
Dick sock. I can't stand that guy.
What? Or, you know, Jay Johnson says, or the defense of the Saints made a few adjustments to the half of the offense of the Vikings. Can't due to the newness of Dobbs or not. Look, no, I'm not buying that. Like, look, I think there was enough there in the game plan that the Vikings could have found something, and they just didn't. I mean, running between the tackles is not countering the Saints' adjustments. It just isn't, Chris. I'm sorry, it just isn't.
I mean, especially when you don't really have backs that are there for running between the tackles at this point.
Right.
I mean, we talked about Madison. I mean, he runs between the tackles, but, you know, he gets like 2 yards every time he runs between the tackles, which is not effective. And, you know, Chandler and Longwu are not really inside runner types, so you want to try to get them on the edge. But, you know, that just because you run up the middle doesn't mean you made those adjustments necessarily. But the entire second half offense was just not where it needed to be, especially after what we saw in the first half.
No. Who do you blame the second half on, Drew? Offense. KOC, the Vikings' offense inability to execute? What?
I blame it on Jim Harbaugh for spying on the other team. That's what I blame it on.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
Let me tell you, it was 24-3. Come out in the third quarter. They get the kickoff. We hold them. And then we get the ball back and we drive down for a field goal to make it 27-3. And I looked at Toonsus and I said, you know what? I wish I could feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
But I know the offense is going to go into a shell because KOC that's what he does. I think they tried to be a little tricky, but Dobbs wasn't feeling it in the second half. He wasn't. He threw that ball at Hawkinson's feet. He threw one that almost got picked off on a slant pattern.
Yeah.
So he wasn't feeling it. The Vikings weren't feeling it, but you got to learn how to put teams away. You got to look at 27-3 as 0-0. And I think their play calling got a little predictable. I think the Saints were building momentum with their defense. And I didn't like the second half, but they it's weird. They did enough to win, but it seems like Kevin O'Connell doesn't want to blow teams out. The Vikings had a lot of chances to blow teams out, and the second half was kind of a downer compared to the first, but it only would have been a total downer if we blew that lead. But if you let teams hang around in the NFL, they're going to catch you, Chris Gates. You know that. It's the NFL. It's not like Western Kentucky against Ohio State where it's 56-3.
All right. Hold on. I'm giving away a prize. Put Coach Gothorp's message back up, Ruby, if you would, about that. There we go. KOC uses the 8-play options from Techno Bowl with a lead. Baby, that is prize-worthy right there. Coach Gothorp, congratulations. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report and Drew and Ted at gmail.com to claim your prize. And, oh, by the way, speaking of prizes, we're showing just over 160-ish people in the chat room right now. Go ahead and make a comment, say hello, say whatever, say your piece about the Vikings game today, and you will be entered to win a prize that Ruby will spin a wheel for at the end of this show.
You guys tell me about the second half. What you like, what you didn't like.
Go ahead, Chris.
I just want to say Coach is talking about one of the more advanced versions of Tecmo Bowl, because the original Tecmo Bowl, you only got 4. But yeah, that's I don't know what happened in the second half, honestly. It's like Drew said, we were kind of talking about before. If the Vikings were to win like 42-20 or something, maybe Kevin O'Connell wouldn't feel good about it. He has to win these close games to make him feel alive or something. I have no idea. I mean, he's too young to feel beaten down or whatever already. I mean, dude's not even 40 yet, but I don't understand what it is either. It's like he says, we're winning this one by too much. We got to let the other team get a little bit closer so we can, I really don't know the logic. And from Brad Morin's comment here, when was the last time the Vikings actually crushed a team? I think you got to go back to that game in 2019 where they played the Chargers at the soccer stadium in Los Angeles, and like 80% of the crowd was Vikings fans.
Oh,
yeah.
And the Chargers turned it over like 7 times. I was at that game. That was awesome. It was one where Odenigbo picked up that. Oh yeah, that was one where Odenigbo picked up that fumble at the end of the first half and ran it in for a touchdown. And yeah, they won that game like 39-10 or something like that. But that was the last. That was the last opponent that the Vikings went out and just beat the crap out of for 4 quarters. And yeah, I think you have to go back that far, which is strange.
So after the half, the Vikings, Drew, like you said, come out. They go 7 plays, 49 yards, kick a field goal. Then they go 3 plays and punt, 7 plays, miss that 54-yard field goal, 7 plays punt, 3 plays, minus 2 yards punt, 3 plays, minus 2 yards punt, 3 plays at 9 yards. I mean, the last 15 plays of the game, they netted 3 yards. Or the last 3 drives of the game, 9 plays, 5 yards.
That's why it's close. That's why it was within 1 score at the end, right there. You hit it. It wasn't. I mean, people want to say, well, they gave up a touchdown drive, then another touchdown drive. That's not looking at football right. what Ted just said was the reason that we won by one score. It wasn't the defense. The defense played great.
Can I talk for a second about what might have been the single worst penalty call I've ever seen?
Is it if it's a Daniil Hunter one? Yes.
So Daniil Hunter is coming around off the edge. He's going to crush Jameis Winston or whatever. He is physically getting his helmet ripped off by the offensive tackle, and you see a flag, and you're like, all right, well, the Vikings got to stop, and they're going to call a penalty. And how the hell does Daniil Hunter get called for hands to the face there when he is physically getting his helmet ripped off of his head during the play? That I've seen some dumb calls. That might have been that's top 5 dumbest calls I've ever seen. And it took away.
You know what, Chris?
And that gift wrap points for the Saints too, because that would have been a stop on that drive, and the Saints turned it into a touchdown. So it
seemed like
it was terrible.
It seemed like there were like 5 plays where the Vikings did good. I saw the flag thing pop up on the screen. I go, what is going? Every good play the Vikings was making in the fourth quarter was getting the flag called on it. It just pissed me off.
Yeah, it was a 3rd and 10 call. It was an incomplete pass that gave them a new set of downs, and the Saints went on to score a touchdown, convert to 2 points. That made it 27-19. It was a bad call, but again, I go back to the Vikings coming out and missing that field goal and then going 3 plays and out, and 3 plays and out, and 3 plays and out. It should not have been something that was so potentially decisive to the outcome of this football game. I mean, when you're up 27-3,
right?
By the time that penalty happened, it should have been at least 30, if not 34 to like 11, I think, at that point. That was before the Saints scored their final touchdown. I don't know. It was a terrible call. I'm not saying it wasn't a terrible call. It absolutely was. But the Vikings keep putting themselves in position to make these bad calls matter, because they got a fair amount of. I mean, the Saints did enough to shoot themselves in the foot all day today as well.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. But
yeah. It just irritated me that became such a pivotal moment in the game, because it shouldn't have been, to be quite honest.
No.
Chris Papa brings up a good point. They had some weird spots in that game.
Yes.
Always a yard. I mean, that Munt catch, I was going, what the hell are you looking at? I mean, they got, it's just weird. The spotting of the ball, which just seemed simple, was weird. Chris Papa is right, man.
And there was one Dobbs run too, where he went around the left edge. It looked like the ball landed on the 35-yard line, which should have been a first down, but they spotted it like half a yard short, and that wound up being
that's on O'Connell.
Instead. Yeah,
O'Connell had to challenge that. What a joke!
I think O'Connell got spooked because he lost that challenge in the first half on what he thought was that Addison catch down there toward the end zone, which I thought was a catch at first too. So I can't blame. But once you looked at it a couple of times, you saw he didn't complete the catch, and so he might have been worried about losing that last challenge. But I think he should have challenged that one anyway.
There's no reason to be gun shy. You got to look at the situation of the game. The Vikings are way up. That would have been a decent challenge, even if you lose. The situation called for a challenge there. I mean, I know what you're saying because he lost the first challenge. He's probably gun shy about it, but you got to challenge that. Dobbs had the first down. You challenge that, you get the ball.
Yeah,
luckily the Saints with 3 and out.
I can.
But you can't. You got to challenge that. Come on.
I agree, and I think I texted you guys and said you should challenge that, but I can kind of see why he didn't, because the calls didn't seem to favor the Vikings on plays like that at all today. And if he loses that challenge, that means he loses the timeout. He doesn't have any challenges left, because he already lost that one earlier on Addison, which I kind of thought he should have challenged until I saw the one replay of it, of Addison going to the ground. The first couple plays, it looked like he caught the ball. I don't know. It just frustrates me that those calls have to be considered part of the outcome of the game. Because the Vikings, when you're up 27-3, man, it shouldn't have been a big deal.
No.
Well, challenges are all about situation of the game. And if you're going to challenge that Addison catch, you got to challenge the Dobbs running for first down. You have to. I mean, that wasn't even. Who's upstairs? Who's upstairs? That was clearly a first down. That would have been called a first down all the way. That wasn't even in question, Ted. So I don't understand
think
why
so,
you don't challenge that.
Because I think he was gun shy because he lost the first one and he didn't want to lose the second one.
Well,
But
you're not gonna win a lot of gunfights being gun shy, are you?
I no, but I would have gone for it at least because you were like a half yard short. I think you could have made that.
Shocked me they didn't challenge that. Shocked me.
Yeah. Got an injury update. Jay Johnson said Kevin O'Connell called Jordan Hicks's injury a lower leg contusion, calf injury for Caleb Evans, concussion for Alexander Madison. So we'll have to monitor Madison's status going into next week because concussion protocol. KJ Osborne cleared it, but I think the Vikings wisely they made the right choice and left him out of today's game. We'll see. We'll monitor with what happens with Madison throughout this upcoming week.
Thank you, JJ, for the injury update. That's
Yep.
very cool.
All right. So the defense. I think we need to talk a little bit about the defense. As the Vikings offense faltered in the second half, the Saints got bailed out by that one call for sure that got them to within 8 points. But then Jameis Winston became the Jameis Winston we all love and know. Throughout his time in the NFL, he threw a couple bad picks, but I thought the Vikings defense especially bowed up when they had to, and after that second touchdown to get them within 8, they just absolutely shut the doors down. Drew,
those 2 touchdowns by the Saints were luckier than shit. Let me tell you, they were total luck. That was Olave made a great catch on that one in the end zone, but if it's not Olave, that's incomplete. He's a great receiver. That was his talent, but that should have never been completed. And the other one was like bobbling, right? The one where Murphy knocked it out of his hand and then the guy regained. It was luck. It was totally luck, but it went the Saints' way. And I don't know. It just felt like they were like cheating their way into getting back in this game, and I wasn't real happy with it.
So after that Saints touchdown, 9 plays, 56 yards, got within 8 points. The Vikings punted after 7 plays. Saints went 3 and punt, 3 and out, 6 plays, interception. The Vikings after that went 3 and out on offense. The Saints went 2 plays and interception, and the Vikings essentially ran the clock out and killed the game, killed the time other than that one last desperation heave into the end zone. So Vikings defense. The Vikings defense is playing as well as I can remember them playing since 2017, 2018, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about the rushing yards. The Saints only had 65 yards. I mean, they didn't reach 300 yards of total offense. They only won 4 out of 14 on third down. And the Vikings won the time of possession battle. And, the most important number for the Vikings, and the first time they've done this all year,
What's that?
The Vikings didn't turn the ball over once today.
Really?
Yep. The first time this season they have had 0 turnovers in a game.
Great. That's great.
So, and the defense, is showing up. I mean, we were even seeing, Andrew Booth getting meaningful snaps there at the end. Mekhi Blackman, obviously, with his first NFL interception on whatever the hell that throw was by Winston. I don't know what the heck he was doing on that pass, but I'm glad he threw it. And, these young guys are starting to step up, and it's impressive to see.
So here's something that just came across my X/Twitter timeline from Ed Werder of ESPN. He says Vikings quarterback Josh Dobbs is the first player in NFL history to record 400 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, and 0 interceptions in a player's first 2 games with a team. Minnesota's won 5 games without Justin Jefferson and 2 without him and Kirk Cousins. So there you go.
And
you got to give it up for Boise. Mensa went out and Dobbs. You're not hearing anything about it because everybody wants to hate.
And from one of our folks over at DN, from one of our folks over at DN, according to the, and I know we're getting into nerd numbers and stuff like that here, but the New York Times playoff simulator that everybody starts to play around with at this time of the year. If the Vikings win their next 3 games against the Broncos, the Bears, and the Raiders, which is not exactly murderers row, they will be at 99% to make the NFC playoffs this year. Who would have thought that after a 1-4 start?
Wow.
Not me.
Not
Mick
me.
Druber. Not Mick Druber. I didn't think that, but we are on a roll and we don't need to change it.
I wouldn't go with Mick Druber. You're Drew Fietti, man. You are your hair is off the chain, brother.
It is chain off.
Diners, drive-ins, dives, and Drew.
That's a great stat, Chris Gates. I'm glad you said that.
Somebody's had a good.
It looks like a different team.
Riley R. Emmer 3-3. The difference between 0-3 Vikings, 6-4 Vikings, turnover battle. Absolutely. I mean, the Vikings won the turnover battle 2-0 today. They've at least broken even. I think since they started their winning streak, they might even after today, they might even be ahead a little bit. I mean, they're still behind total in the turnover battle from the first month of the season, but I think since they started this winning streak, they are on the plus side of the turnover battle, which is very encouraging. And Drew, one of the things we talked about when Josh Dobbs, you brought this up when the Vikings first traded for him, was his penchant for turning the ball over. And he had a couple of bad ones last week, which I think we can sort of excuse just based on the circumstances of him having to come into the game. I was really looking today to see how well he took care of the football, and he did, I thought, a great job of taking care of the football.
I thought so too. I mean, I think this is his first game in like 7 games straight where he hasn't fumbled, which is a step in the right direction. I think KOC has to be commended for pointing that out in the film room. You can't turn the ball over, but if you notice, a lot of Josh Dobbs' fumbles are the way he carries the ball. It's not necessarily him in the pocket getting hit and fumbling like Carr did. It's mainly last week he fumbled because one fumble hit the offensive lineman, knocked the ball out, and the other one hit the defensive lineman, but it all happens the way he carries it. And Toots has brought up the point that today he was running with the ball, and Toots has said that's why he fumbled, because he carries it away from his body. So I'm glad to see him not fumble today. And, I want to take a second and go, good for Josh Dobbs. That guy's been on 6 teams. 6 teams gave up on him. It looks like he's found a home. And I don't know what this is going to turn into, but right now, it's good for Josh Dobbs, good for the Vikings. It seems to be meshing, and he's been in the league for a lot of years, Ted. Good for him.
Ryan Gillen brings up Dobbs almost threw a pick early today. That was the one pass to Jordan Addison, but the defender tipped it up. It went right through the defender's hands. Tipped in the air. Addison came down and made a great play. That's true. Yeah, he threw. That was kind of a risky throw. Somebody on Twitter threw this out there, and I want to talk. I want to talk about this now that we've mentioned this first quarter pass. There are a lot of 2017 Case Keenum vibes with Josh Dobbs right now. I don't give a flip. I'm just going to grip it and rip it and trust my receivers to come down with the ball. And it feels like there's some of that going on with the Vikings right now, because the vibes I'm getting from this team are very 2017-ish right now. I don't know about you guys.
Exactly right.
They really are. I mean, it's really, we saw Sam Bradford have that big opening game against the Saints, and then he went out with another injury because he's Sam Bradford, and that's just kind of how his entire career went pretty much. But you put in Case Keenum, and everyone's like, oh, Case Keenum, dude's terrible. He couldn't make it with whoever I can't remember who he was with before he came to Minnesota, but nobody was excited about Case Keenum. And I don't know how many people were excited about Josh Dobbs either when the Vikings traded for him and when he wound up going into the ball game. But he's given people reasons to get excited because he's played incredibly well for a dude that's been here a week and a half. And the defense, like we saw in 2017, is really starting to come around. It feels like when the defense needs a stop, unlike last year when we knew they were just going to give it up, they're getting stops this year. And these young guys are just stepping up in ways that I don't think anybody really expected going into the season. But, Yeah, I can agree with that. The vibes are kind of similar.
Well, here's a little thing that Digital Nate brought up. We can kind of compare and contrast. The 2017 receiving top three receivers, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, and Kyle Rudolph, are not as good as Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson. So you agree with that? Do you agree with that, Drew? Chris? I don't know. That's a longer debate, but just quick yes or no. Better 2017 or this group.
I'll say that Justin Jefferson as an individual receiver is better than any of those guys, and Hawkinson might be better than Rudolph, but I mean peak Diggs and peak Thielen at the same time, because those guys were amazing when they were out there together. I mean, they just the way they played off of each other, whatnot. And we all love Jordan Addison, but he's not on the level of a Thielen or a Diggs yet. So it'd be tough for me to.
You don't think so?
No, I would still have to give Diggs and Thielen and Kyle Rudolph the edge there. It wouldn't be by much, but I think it's just a little bit higher there.
Drew, I would go Diggs and then Addison and Thielen are. I think Addison and Thielen are like right there together, but that's just me, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it a push. That if anything called for a push, it's that comparison. I mean,
that's what she said.
I mean, Rudy didn't give you the yards after catch, but Rudy caught everything.
Yeah.
I think that's a push. I think they're both tremendous trio of receivers, so it's hard to pick. It's hard to choose that. I kind of agree with what Chris said. He made a lot of sense on that. Which is usual for a guy wearing a Dick Trickle shirt. I mean,
yeah, Mark Stein says first half Josh looked like a quarterback the Vikings haven't had in ever. Well, Mr. Stein, you obviously did not. Maybe you did and just forgot, and that'd be okay. You didn't see young St. Francis of Bloomington run all over the Bloomington Prairie in his prime. He was all over the place back in the day. But yeah, it's a dynamic that the Vikings haven't had probably since Dante Culpepper. I mean, you're going back. Favre wasn't a runner. The flotsam and jetsam garbage they had between good quarterbacks. I mean, okay, Joe Webb could run, but he was like a wide receiver playing quarterback. Yeah, they haven't, Drew. Go ahead.
You know what the difference is between Case Keenum and Josh Dobbs? Is Josh Dobbs can throw some lasers. Yeah. That touchdown pass to Hawkinson,
yeah,
Keenum isn't throwing that. A couple of those first down passes, the big third down catch by Powell late in the fourth quarter. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for the first down, the diving catch for the first down. Yeah.
Right. And Tuta said that guy throws lasers. Case Keenum ain't making that play either. The arm strength is a huge difference between Keenum and Josh Dobbs. It is.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, well, no doubt. I think my point on that is on the comparison is that they both kind of have this aggressive mentality that I'm going to throw it. I'm going to trust my guys to go get it. And I'll tell you what, when you have, Mark said, okay, Ted, fair enough. In the last 50 years. Okay. We're going to agree there in the last 50 years. I think, you see Josh Dobbs evolving into these last two games, an incredibly talented quarterback. The talent's always been there, but the quality of players and skill guys he had to play with until now hasn't been there. And now maybe that you've got Justin Jefferson coming back. And somebody said this earlier. JJ tweeted, he said, I can't wait to get back out there and play with these guys. So when you got a guy like Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor made a nice catch today, and Brandon Powell, who's becoming like the next Jarius Wright to me. When you have that kind of talent, it's if you have the natural talent like I think Josh Dobbs has, that's only going to elevate your play compared to where he's been before now.
And he is an actual rocket scientist. I don't know if we've heard that yet, but he is an actual rocket scientist. So he's smart.
You know what? That first half, it just felt different.
It did.
It felt like a Viking team I haven't seen in a long time. It felt energetic. It felt like we're not. I mean, at one point they were going no huddle up big. Yeah. And I'm thinking that's a great idea because the Saints aren't expecting us to go no huddle right at this juncture. But it just seemed different. It seemed energetic, and it just I don't mean that as a rip on Cousins, but it's just, man, those extra plays that were made in the first half were the difference of the game, Ted. They were. If you look at the whole game in a vacuum, the first half play, that's it. That's the difference of the game.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I
want to point out something that our friend Dave Stefano said here, talking about the quality of coach that's in Josh Dobbs' ear as well. I mean, we've talked about it in the past. We've made reference to it in the past, but I don't know how much there were to the rumors of, Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins not getting along or whatever. But it seemed like outside of Teddy Bridgewater, when Mike Zimmer was in Minnesota, he was always, I don't know if he actively disliked his quarterbacks or anything like that. I mean, we all know that he loved Teddy Bridgewater, but he was a defensive coach, and therefore I don't know if he had the level of trust in his quarterbacks that Kevin O'Connell seems to have in Kirk Cousins, and he showed that level of trust in Jaron Hall for the quarter or so that he played in Atlanta, and now he's showing it with Dobbs too. And I don't think we can overstate the importance for the quarterbacks in this system that Kevin O'Connell was a quarterback in the National Football League, and he's put the faith in these quarterbacks that I don't think Mike Zimmer ever would have shown, even in a guy like Cousins, who has shown the ability to be productive. So I think that's a big part of this as well.
And somebody also mentioned one of the big reasons for this turnaround is the defense. Last year's defense would have given this game away, and the Vikings would have been in big trouble.
Absolutely correct.
They sure would.
That's not even debatable.
Yeah,
that's a fact. Whoever said that.
Mark Larson, Zimmer was a grouchy F who didn't even get along with his dog. Chris, you said I'm not sure if there's something that maybe Mike Zimmer didn't like his quarterback. Holy crap! I think it was Zimmer's last year. They beat Detroit on a last-minute field goal. Kirk had a great drive to get him into field goal range, and I think it was Joseph that kicked the field goal to win the game. And Kirk grabbed Zimmer, and it looked like Zimmer was going to punch him. That's almost an infamous sideline thing now. There's no way Josh Dobbs advances this fast with the Minnesota Vikings if anyone other than Kevin O'Connell is the head coach of this team.
And even down to the last game of the Zimmer era, because the Vikings were out of the playoffs that last year, whatever, because they lost. And one of the reporters, it was probably Chris Thomason, because he didn't like Chris Thomason either. But they went into the press conference and they're like, "All right, you've been eliminated from the playoffs and whatnot." And it was something along the lines of, "You want to see what you have in Kellen Mond at quarterback?" And Zimmer was just like, "No." And that was it. No, we're not going to play the young quarterback because I just don't care. He might have known he was on his way out, but he was like, "No, I don't want to play the rookie. To hell with that. No, whatever." But, yeah.
Thadir says, real quick, Thadir says, "I hope the NFL is still blackballing Flores. We get to keep him for a few years. I hope they're not blackballing him. I think the guy absolutely deserves a shot as head coach. If I was Ziggy Wilf right now, I would bring him and O'Connell into the office and say, Brian, I want to do whatever I can to keep you as defensive coordinator. If it's to name you assistant or deputy head coach and give you a title and a lot more money just right below O'Connell because he's the head coach. He's got to make more. That's just the way it goes. But I will give you $10 a year less if you will stay. I mean, I would do whatever I had to keep him. But that's just me, Drew. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I agree. Spaceship. What do you want? You want a room in Vegas? All girls? What do you want? You give Flores whatever he wants. I wanted to ask you guys about the going forward from this point, because we all seen today, we seen last week, we seen the games coming up to it. Give me your feel on is this fake? Is this just BS? Do the Vikings, have they latched onto something that could carry them the last, what do we got? 6 weeks left? 7? 6? 7.
8. Do the Vikings still have to take a bye here at some point, but 7 more games left. Yeah.
Okay. 8. Do the Vikings have it? Have they found something right now? How do you feel about it going forward, about this team? That's what I want to ask you. I want to get your opinions on that.
Go ahead, Chris.
I mean,
and the room
it
and the chat.
It kind of feels that way. I mean, if you look at some of the runs that the Vikings have had I'm not even going to say recent years because I'm going to go back 25 years here. like the 98 season, Brad Johnson gets hurt, and all of a sudden we've got Randall Cunningham, who hadn't done anything meaningful in like a long time in the National Football League, and the Vikings make a run. And then in 2009, you get Brett Favre in here, and everyone's like, "No, he was terrible with the Jets last year, and he's got all this other stuff." And then he leads them on a run to the NFC Championship game. And then 2017, Sam Bradford gets hurt, and we get Case Keenum. It seems like something like this always happens to kind of touch off a run for the Vikings, and I don't know if we're going to get that with Josh Dobbs this year, but there is precedent for it in history with this team. Just teams lose their starting quarterback, and usually you just automatically assume that they're screwed. But whether it's Randall Cunningham or Brett Favre or Case Keenum or whatever it might be, something like that happens with this team, and it sets off something bigger somehow, somewhere. And like I said, I don't know if we're going to see that this season, but it's how all those other seasons got started. So stranger things have happened.
I'll tell you when we find out. They beat New Orleans today, so they're 6-4. They've won 5 in a row, 6 out of their last 7. Then they're at Denver next week. Then they've got the Bears at home, and then they've got the bye. So they have a very real shot to go 8-4. Coming out of the bye, they're at Vegas, they're at Cincinnati, they're home against Detroit, they're home against Green Bay, and they finish the season against Detroit. So those last 3 of those last 4 games, at Cincinnati, Detroit, Green Bay, and at Detroit, are going to tell us where the Vikings sit. Because somebody mentioned it earlier, we brought it up that look, the Vikings started 1-4. We were kind of comparing Kirk and Josh Dobbs' play, if you're joining us late, that Kirk played a lot better competition. We are going to find out just how good Josh Dobbs is and how good this Vikings offense is coming out of the bye. I don't think Vegas is going to be a cakewalk because Antonio Pierce has kind of given that team a whole different vibe since they fired Josh McDaniel. Cincinnati's the defending AFC champions, and they got two games in 3 weeks against the team that's currently leading the NFC North. We will find out how good Josh Dobbs is. But for right now, I'm going to ride this vibe because, man, it's fun, and I like cheering for a team that's fun. I'm glad they're not tanking. I'm glad they're playing well. I'm glad they're winning. And I wrote here that the vibes are immaculate-ish. The first half, the vibes were completely 100% immaculate. The second half, not so much. If they can just play a little bit better in the second half, this game isn't even close. And I just think this is stuff, Chris, like you said, it just builds. It just builds and keeps building. They win. They won. Last week was a hell of a confidence boost for this entire team. They won with a guy that had been with the team for less than a week. And now they went out and they won today. And now they got a chance next week to go out and win another game on the road against Denver and a guy that Minnesota fans will hate forever, and Sean Payton. This just feels like something is building here. And we're going to find out what it builds to when they go to Cincinnati in December.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
All right. Ruby, are you there?
All right. Hey, there's Toonses.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
Why, hello.
Toonses
You ready
likes
for
my
the
hair.
wheel?
I'm ready for the Wheel of Destiny.
Heck yeah.
All right. Once again, we have quite a few names on there.
Sheba.
All right, here we go.
It's a lot of names. Dang.
Oops. There we go.
Doc Proto. Long-time
Supporter of the
OG member of
Yeah.
the Vikings Report, Drew and Ted. Commenting section,
Long-time
commenting
supporter.
club. Yeah. Congratulations, Doc. You know the deal. You know what to do. We don't need to tell you anything. You know the drill.
Good job, Doc.
All right. So Vikings, they beat the Saints. They moved to 6-4 on the year. With a 27, was it 19? 27-19 score. They're on a roll. Drew, what are your final thoughts before we get out of here for today?
My final thoughts are keep learning from week to week, keep progressing from week to week. You get Madison out of there, and you keep working with Dobbs on the plays that he can make out of the pocket. You just try to work on getting better. But something is going on right now. I'm telling you, that Viking team I saw in the first half was unlike any I've seen. Even with last year, all those magical wins, it was different. That 2-minute drive when they were aggressive and drove it down the field and got the touchdown, that's different than what I've seen. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited. Let's see what happens in the next 3-4 weeks and see if we can ride it into something and turn it into maybe a division championship or at least a playoff spot. But again, I'm excited to be a Viking fan, Ted. I'm happy about the game. I'm happy how it went. And let's keep going, baby. Yeah, McGruber. Yeah.
All right, Fietti, calm down. Chris?
I mean, this is kind of comparable to last year, I think. I mean, I know we were having fun last year, but, this year we can have fun without all the nerds basically, getting into our faces and being like, don't you know this team isn't any good? I don't care if they're 13-4. This team isn't any good. Now they've gone from 1-4 to 6-4, and people can't say, no, this team's terrible. This team stinks. You shouldn't be enjoying this as much as you are. But I mean, we enjoyed last season. We had fun doing these shows after games last season, and they won 13 games, and we're having fun doing it again. So, this is what it's all about. And we're having, it's been great so far, and we'll see, like Drew said, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks once we get closer to and get through the bye and that rough stretch toward the end of the season that you detailed when they have 3 out of 4 on the road, and it'll be interesting. At least, when we were 1-4, we didn't even know if this season was going to be interesting anymore, but it certainly is now.
Like Buffalo Springfield so famously said, there's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. Got a QB with a gun over there telling the rest of the league they got to beware.
Absolutely.
Better stop.
Perfect.
You better stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what Josh Dobbs has got going around.
Oh, Ted Glover's on fire. Also, live looking at Derek Carr.
All right. For Drew, Fietti, for Christopher Diggs, for Ruby, thanks everybody so much for tuning in and watching and commenting. Drew and I will be back later next week with our preview for next week's opponent, the Denver Broncos.
Oh, we're going to kick their ass.
But for everybody here at Vikings Report, take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.